A lot of owners assume that their business is worth what they've invested into it. The years, the sacrifice, the long hours, the sleepless nights, the reputation they've built, the stories, the battles they've won or survived, and what your business has meant to you or your family. But buyers don't see the business the way that you do. I've watched owners lose millions of dollars in value, not because their businesses weren't profitable, but because buyers didn't believe that the business would succeed if the owners left. In this video, I'll explain one of the biggest hidden drivers of business value, and I'll give you 3 simple questions that will tell you whether your company is actually becoming more valuable or simply just dependent on you. Okay, to start out, I want to make a simple illustration. These are numbers that come from research with the Exit Planning Institute. Let's take $10 million. If your business makes less than $10 million, statistically, you only have about a 20% chance or likelihood of selling your business. It's not great. 80% of businesses that do less than 10 million in revenue will never find a buyer. If you make more than $10 million, your chances or likelihood of selling your business increase to about 30%. Not significantly larger, but it is larger. That means 70% of businesses that do better than 10 million in revenue still just shut down. They have a liquidation or a fire sale of some kind. Now, you don't hear about this from your golfing buddies or fishing buddies, but this is the reality of what actually happens. There's euphemisms for why this happens, and people have their own ways of explaining it. Most people don't put a lot of thought into the stories behind what happened. Really, what happens is most businesses never actually sell. They just quit. And so if you want to be part of this 30% or this 20%, and this is the good news, is that this isn't just chance. It's not just luck. It's not the roll of the dice. You can do the things. We know what these 30% do that makes them sellable and what these 20% do that make them sellable. So whichever side of the revenue line your business might be, we can increase the likelihood of you moving to a place of being 100% or at least nearly 100% likely to sell your business just by doing some basic things. And this video is going to be about one of the primary drivers of value in your business. So here's the big concept that you need to understand as a seller. You know, you've got however many years in your business, you have all of the stories about your business, there's all of the things that your business means to you, and that stuff probably will matter to some degree to some buyers. But buyers are buying the future. Your past matters to them, especially your financial history matters to them, but all of the stories about how this improved your life and all of that doesn't really carry the same weight, and it doesn't factor much into a financial decision most of the time. And so you really have to understand that what makes a business important or valuable to an owner, to a seller, is different often than what makes it valuable to a potential buyer. What a buyer is mostly looking at is, will this business succeed after the owner has left? That's one of the main questions that they want to know, is that if I give you $10 million or whatever the price is for the business, is this business going to perform after you're gone? Or are you going to take the customers with you? Are you going to take the magic with you? Are you going to take the employees with you? Are you going to take the knowledge of how to run this with you? Is it all somehow going to evaporate through the transition of the sale? Because that is what happens much of the time. Another little statistic that from McKinsey, the consulting group, is that about 60% of acquisitions fail to return value to the acquirer. And that's for a whole other set of reasons, and maybe I'll do another video around that. But knowledgeable buyers, or at least knowledgeable lenders behind the buyers, are aware of how frequently acquisitions don't work that well. And so a good buyer, a responsible buyer, one that might frustrate you with all the questions that they ask, is actually aware that this is not necessarily an easy thing to do, to transfer value. However, if you've set your business up well, then it actually isn't hard to transfer value, and you can do it. And this is what I'm going to introduce here is one of the main reasons for that. And it's this concept of what it takes to have transferable value. So it doesn't matter what your profit margins are, Let's say you do $10 million a year and you have 60% margins. Amazing. You're pulling out $6 million a year. You're living large. You're doing better than everybody you know. Good for you. That's great. Sincerely. That doesn't necessarily mean your business will sell. I have met business owners like that could not sell their businesses, that couldn't find buyers because they weren't structured to sell. They weren't structured in a way where the potential buyer looked at the business and saw a future that gave them confidence without the owners being there making it happen. So most businesses are profitable to some degree, but very few are transferable to a new owner. And that's the important thing to understand. So what will happen is a buyer will look at the scenario and the situation, especially around the level of dependency that it has on the owner. That's really the primary, it's not the only thing. There's about 8 major factors that I look at. You could calculate that as 9 or 10. There's different ways of looking at it. But one of the major ones has to do with owner dependency, or what's often termed as owner dependency. And if a buyer sees high owner dependency, they see that the business really seems to need the owner to be there, they're very frequently likely to just walk away and say, no, it's not worth trying to figure out how to transfer the value from this. Or if they really want the business, they'll try to negotiate down and lower the purchase price. Now that can also kill the deal because the seller, you, might feel offended by that. You wanted 10 million and they're offering you 6 and you're thinking, well, I'm getting ripped off here. And so you say choice words to them and they walk away. And that happens frequently, even though the seller or the buyer may not actually be trying to shortchange you. They're just trying to mitigate or control their risks because they're seeing or perceiving a level of risk that you aren't seeing or perceiving. The other thing that they'll do, going back to risk, is they'll push risk onto the seller. And this is one of the most common dynamics. And they'll do this with things called earnouts. And so they'll say, tell you what, I will buy the business from you for $10 million, and I will give you $5 million now. The remaining $5 million is going to be dependent on you staying for another 2, 3. I know one company that buys a lot of companies, they require people to stay for 5 years. We want you to stay and essentially earn us the money that we will then pay you with. And there's often performance benchmarks connected to that. And what sellers don't know is that most of the time, the seller doesn't earn the full earnout. So the full $10 million number that was quoted isn't actually spent or isn't actually given to the seller most of the time. That's the most common scenario. And it's not because the buyers are trying to pull a fast one or be sneaky, although I suppose they could be. It's typically because when the seller gets to the point of selling their business, they usually have waited so long that they're burned out or tired or sick or someone in their family is, or there's a conflict, and they don't have the energy or the attention or the fire in their belly anymore to put that effort into the earnout. And so they end up either walking away from it or just not being able to get it. So that's the most common scenario. And so what you want to be able to do is to control this. I usually say, do all the things that they would ask you to do in your earnout up front beforehand, and then you can sell all of that. But that's really the main thing that you want to think about. If you're wondering how your business would look through a buyer's eyes, take my free Value Builder assessment. It will walk you through many of the operational and leadership issues that buyers evaluate long before they're willing to make an offer. Additionally, it'll give you an estimate of what the likely value of your business actually is. You'll find a link to the Value Builder assessment in the description below. Now, let's look at the 3 questions that I ask almost every owner to determine how independent their business is from them. Okay, the 3 questions that you want to ask yourself to tell, is this business positioned well, at least when it comes to owner dependency? The first question that you want to ask yourself is, how long can I be gone? I call this the vacation test. I don't care if you go on a vacation or what you do, but the idea is how long can you be away from your business and the business still at a minimum operates fine without you checking in. Ideally, it even grows and expands and improves in your absence, but at a minimum, it does fine. How long can you be gone? Can you go away for a week without things falling apart? If you can you go away for 2 weeks? Can you leave for a month? Could you leave for 3 months? That's the test that I often send my clients on. It's easy homework. Go away. I don't care if you go on vacation. I don't care if you visit family. I don't care if you go to take a class somewhere. Go away. Let your business try to operate without you. This is the test to see if your business can operate without you. That's attractive to a buyer because that's ultimately what they want. The second question is, what happens when you are gone? Are there troubles? Are there emails to you constantly? Are there texts? Do people not know how to make decisions? Does forward movement stop? Do problems go unsolved? Does creativity end without you? Or do people figure things out? Is authority delegated well? Are opportunities taken advantage of and pursued? The only way you can really know this is really by testing it. And that brings us to the third question. Have you tested it? Now, the most common scenario is that owners believe everything will fall apart in their absence. Have you tested that assumption? Many times, people actually thrive. This is a tough reality, a bitter pill to swallow, even though it only means good things. But some owners kind of secretly hope that nobody can operate without them because they secretly love being the smartest and most needed person in the room. So that's a reason to go to counseling. What you want to do is evaluate, have you tested these assumptions about how long you can be gone and what happens when you're gone? If you have tested it, and there was a problem, then the next time you plan another vacation right away. So if you left for a week and there's constant emails and texts coming to you around financial decisions and around how to deal with certain customers and how to deal with certain employee issues, you want to start thinking about, all right, I'm going to go away for a week again in another 6 months. What preparation do I need to do so that this time when I go away, I only need to check in twice while I'm gone? Then as soon as you take that vacation, plan another trip, another 6 months out to be away for a week or maybe for 10 days or 2 weeks this time, and try to figure out what do I need to do for that vacation to require less of me. And you just keep trying to do this. I had a client that when I started with them was a small outfit, only 9 employees. By the time I was done, they had about 56 employees and they were in 3 different states. And he was independent of the business. He wasn't needed for the day-to-day operations. He had hired a CEO or promoted a CEO and 2 other people on his executive team, and they pretty much ran things without him. The path to that was actually following this scenario. He just started not being around. Now, this wasn't even with my advice. I hadn't observed this yet. So early on when I was doing this kind of work, but I just started noticing he intuitively knew that he just needed to be absent for his team to practice the leadership muscles of autonomy that allow them to function without him. So he started taking trips. He'd be gone for a week, and then he would come back for a month, and then he'd be gone for 2 weeks, and then he'd come back for a little bit. Then he was gone for a month, and he just kept extending how long he was gone. And it was actually very, very initially disorientating to his team, but it ultimately became extremely empowering to them, but also to him, because he was actually starting another business and expanding the current one. This is part of how he expanded into multiple states. Now, there were challenges with that. One of the states that he expanded into, he left that office too early and started taking these trips too early, and he was gone for too long, and the office kind of performance collapsed in on itself. So he got sucked back into direct management for about 18 months of trying to revitalize that and get it back on its feet and get it going. Not the end of the world. Now, in this scenario, he didn't actually sell the entire company. All of this whole story happened, I don't know, maybe 14 years ago. He sold part of the company. He still retains ownership of part, but he's only involved maybe on a monthly basis or quarterly basis. He's not involved in day-to-day operations. And he's in an industry that almost never sells their companies. They're usually never built to sell. He can sell his. And so this exercise of going away is actually a very powerful tool, if you use it well, for helping you prepare for an exit. So here's the lesson. You will not build transferable value by accident. It doesn't happen very likely, at least not the chances are not high. You build value, or one of the best ways to build value is by practicing your own absence, by going away. And in that space, ensuring that performance is going to continue or even improve in your absence. If you can do that, which you can, then you become part of that 20% or 30% of sellers who actually are successful in selling their business. If you remember only one thing from this video, remember this. Owners often confuse what makes a business valuable to them with what makes it valuable to a buyer. A buyer isn't purchasing your history. They're investing in the company's future. And the question isn't whether you can run your own business. You've already proven that. The real question is whether your business can run without you, whether that value can be transferred to someone else. The owners who build the most valuable companies are often the best at giving away control. This moves them from being obligated to their business to being free, and that has a value all on its own. In the next video, I'll show you how founders unintentionally become the biggest bottleneck in their own companies and why that single issue can dramatically reduce what a buyer is willing to pay.